I did a little bit of instigating on my timeline for the weekend. I made this post. I think you guys know. I've been wanting to talk about Ken Masters because you guys know when the patch came out, everybody said that Ken was the worst Shoto in this version of the game. Let's be honest, they're fucking lying. Everybody went back and is playing some Ken Masters now. And Angry Bird replied and he said, I believe he's not top 5. He's talking about Akuma. And I said, what about Ken Masters? And he says, I don't know where he is on the tier list, but I'm sure he's stronger than Akuma. But I mean, who knows that that's true? Do most people think that Akuma is weaker than Ken? I think most people think Akuma's better probably. The reason I think a lot of people have value in Ken over Akuma, and this is probably a lesson about not just raw character strength, why would it be that Tokido and Angry Bird would think about playing Ken over Akuma? Are you telling me that Tokido is supposed to like switch away from Ken and play Akuma and go play in that tournament for $1 million? He's been playing Ken for like a year and you want him to switch to a brand new Akuma and go try to win that money? He should probably play Ken. It just makes sense. And in general, I think Ken is a more stable tournament character than Akuma. Akuma has less life and he's newer. Until you master the character, which is going to take a long ass time, there's no way that the character is going to be better in tournament. And he's really good in this version. Ken got a lot of good changes. Tap parry being worse makes Jinrai pressure, somehow, makes Jinrai pressure better. And then the character himself received a nerf in like the target combo nerf and some other changes, but mostly is the same and or slightly better in some ways. They made some of his combos slightly better. The jab nerfs like probably affected scaling a little bit, but that's like also universal. Everything else about him is like extremely good. What if Ken was the best Shoto in this version of the game? Maybe Akuma's better, maybe Luke's better, but what if? Like, I don't know, maybe he is. We'll give it some time. We'll think about it. These are the winners and losers of the Season 2 patch based on average MR difference. And this is high MR. I think it's like 17 or 1800 and up. Probably not surprising to most of you. Mr. Zangief has a pretty good month, huh? He looks like he's having a good time. This character is like better in every way, basically. So I'm not surprised. Maybe the biggest winner for him is that Akuma is out. Everybody's playing Akuma into Zangief, and I think Zangief fights Akuma pretty well. Ryu and Aki got pretty nice buffs. Rashid basically didn't change in like a meaningful way. Like he got some buffs, like his slide situation. Honestly, I don't think that really matters that much. I think it's mostly just that the character's better than him got nerfed. Luke getting nerfed, right, is really good for him. He'll take that. He's happy. DJ getting nerfed. Blanca getting nerfed. Like, these characters being worse is just better for Rashid. Sim going up also doesn't surprise me. He's basically the same this version. He got very few changes. Probably a lot of beating up Akuma and farming the new Zangief players. Jury got buffs when she's already a strong character. Honda got buffs when he's already a bad character. Jamie got buffs. Kim got buffs. Lily. Like, these characters all got buffs. Chun-Li, slightly higher, but overall, she got a little nerf in her back walk speed. And then JP down, Luke down, DJ down, Blanca down. These characters all got nerfed. Guile down is very surprising to me, given that I think the consensus from most people is that he's one of the most powerful characters in this version of the game. And he didn't really get meaningful nerfs. My guess is Guile just dying to Zangief and Akuma. Knuckle Dude's daughter. He was already 11, whatever. I don't think he was high MR with Guile ever, right? If you guys don't know about that, Knuckle Dude lets his daughter play on his Guile in ranked, so his MR is like 1100. Yeah, by season 3, she's gonna be a demon. So Cat Cammy always posts these. It's a matchup table based on ranked first to 2 games and games between players that average an MR of 1700 or more. Zangief versus Aki, I apologize for nuking them in Zangief's favor. They would probably be like 3% better win rate for Aki. I just can't beat a Zangief player, so I apologize. Support Cat Cammy, check out all the stuff that they do. Very, very cool. Lots of data and stats. So as of right now, you may see on the right side here, this column, they have the averages per character versus the cast and their average matchup overall. Ken Masters, aka the character who was not top 5 last version and then desperately needed buffs and then now is somehow the worst Shoto in the game, according to Ken players. He has the best overall matchup spread versus the cast in this environment right now, right? This isn't the end all be all, but very interesting, I must say. You know, one thing about Ken, not to upplay or downplay, but to talk a little bit about him that makes him interesting. He is such a stable, consistent character in so many ways. His approach is really good. Footsie buttons are great. His walk speed is great. His damage and combo utility is awesome. He has the ability to side swap extremely consistently. He can juggle and combo into his supers, so he doesn't have to like do cancels or things that give him opportunities to miss very easily, right? Really good spacing traps. He has good ways to strip your drive gauge. He has Fireball or EX Fireball, Drive Rush Approach. He has like Dragon Lash to throw you off. He has good and like burnout pressure. He's just really stable and reliable. Even if Akuma is a better character, Ken has more life and I think is just like so consistent. He's a good investment as a tournament player for sure. The purpose of these charts though are generally, it's nice to like get a look of like what your character's matchup spread is like, right? And like maybe just get an idea of like what matchups are struggling or better or whatever. Interesting for Ken, his losing matchups, JP, very slight to Cammy, almost negligible, right? Zangief, Lily, very slight to Rashid there, very slight to Ryu. Everybody else is above. It's winning, and he has some big ones. I don't think it's probably obvious. If you had to guess like who's the weakest character, I mean, I think a lot of people would probably guess like Manon, Jamie or something, Honda. But actually the character down here at the bottom is Ryu. Most of his matchups are just like really middling. And Guile is the second lowest, which is also very surprising, given that most people think Guile is one of the best characters in the game. The thing about Ryu in general, right, is most people who are going to play a Shoto probably will not pick a Shoto they think is weaker. And even though Ryu's better in this version of the game, a lot of them are going to pick Ken or Akuma if they're trying to win, or Luke. That leaves like the Ryu dedicated specialists instead of just like all the top players who pick them. Kind of like how Ed is the opposite. Most people here tend to think of Ed as like somewhat of a mid-tier character. He has the second best win rate on this chart. I think part of it is due to the fact that the high MR Eds are a beast, right? And in Japan, they think this character is really strong. And there's a lot of really strong players on him, right? So like Fudo's been playing this character now. Momochi's been playing this character now. Tachikawa, you guys saw, probably got second at Battle Arena Melbourne with this character. I think he's one of the most popular characters in Japan right now. There's just like a million legend Ed players in Japan whose win rates are probably really, really high. Some surprising stuff too, like Aki being this low when I think people think she's quite strong in this version of the game. Chun-Li, a character people think is top 5. Potentially all the way down here. So I wouldn't look at this as like a raw tier list, but it's cool to see data broken down like this about like where the characters are and stuff. This is last patch. Highest overall, Luke, then Blanca, then Chun, Cammy, JP. Kimberly is 5th here, Dalsum. But look at how much lower so many characters are, including Ken. Ken is like way lower, right, on this. Guile's still quite low. Manon went up quite a bit though, huh? Yeah, she's like much higher. She passed the middle line threshold. People are getting more used to the update and the balance changes now, whereas the Ed patch was the last update that people had gotten used to, but it was pretty similar to what the base game was like, right? It wasn't that different. Zangief being top 5 in the data against all the characters is pretty spooky. In Japan, they are screaming about this character. Yeah, I mean, I watched Itabashi fight Haitani. Haitani's on modern Chun-Li. Itabashi, Zangief beat him to death. It was not close. He is really good in this version of the game. Is he top 5? I don't know if I'm convinced of that quite yet. I think some of the buffs were a little bit too ham, maybe. He was ham in season 2 of Street Fighter 5 also. Maybe season 2, he's just destined to be cheap in every Street Fighter game. Is Cammy still top 5 as a question, right? A lot of people think Zangief's top 5. Is Zangief top 5? Is Akuma? What about Juri? People said Juri was top 5 when this patch came out, a lot of them. People said Luke was nerfed to top 1 to top 1. Is Luke still top 1? I don't think people have an idea for this patch yet. And the interesting thing is that the Street Fighter devs have said that they're going to patch more often. I don't know if that means like twice a year instead of once, or 3 times a year instead of whatever, right? Like, I don't know when they're going to update. My guess is that the balance updates would be around major events and stuff like that. Besides Combo Breaker as a target to assassinate, my assumption of viable times to put patches is like post-Evo. Around the Terry release date would make a lot of sense. I would be surprised if they didn't do something around the winter and then let that be the Capcom Cup patch. I assume they want to be pretty careful about patching and doing anything too major before Capcom Cup, because the other thing is that the qualifiers, like the World Warriors for Capcom Cup, are starting up quite soon. So you don't want to change the game too much unless you have nice breakpoints. I really hope that they give people more of a heads up about the patch notes and what they're patching. And I hope they tell everybody, hey, we're going to be balance patching with the release of this character. Just give us a heads up, right? If you knew the patches in 6 months, it makes it so much easier to be like, oh, cool. If I want to dump time into learning a new character or sticking with my character, like I can invest for 6 months without changes, right? Whereas what happens if you decide I'm going to like invest the next month in learning a character, and then the Bison patch comes out, and then the Bison patch has balance changes and they nerf the character you just spent the last month learning. And then you go into like the Capcom Cup or EWC qualifier with a month less prep on the correct character that you want to play. Yeah, it's really tough for competitors, right? Now, for normal humans like us, probably a little less pertinent about when the patch timing is, but I think that's why it's important to like tell people, yo, this is what's going to happen, this is what we're thinking, etc.